Good morning, Sheila. How are you doing?
Good morning, Wayne. I'm excellent today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Golly, it's such a gorgeous day today.
It really is.
And
Except
welcome.
that, Wayne, it's the kind of day where you have to plan two outfits because it's a different temperature in the morning and significantly different in the afternoon.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yep.
As you and Zeke are out there strolling, huh?
Yep. Yep.
Ah,
Yep. Sniffing.
okay.
Sniffing. Yep.
Okay. And welcome everyone to 27 Minutes with Sheila and Wayne, where we explore the fascinating world of verbs and their impact on our daily lives. Join us each week as we delve into the different ways verbs shape our language and influence our actions, as we attempt to make a positive difference in our world, one verb at a time. And Sheila, where can our listeners find you?
Thank you. My email address rather is zekeandsheila@yahoo.com.
Okay. And my email address is wayne@mindsyncing.com. That's MINDSYNCING.com. And what is our verb for today?
Today's verb is to structure. To structure. And
Structure.
to structure. And sometimes I have a trivia question, but I don't have one today, and
Oh,
because I totally forgot it.
I do have one, so we're good.
Yes, good.
Yes. All
Do you
right.
have one? Okay.
I do have one. And here it is. So, our trivia question for today, which we will answer at the end of the show. Who coined the phrase, failing to plan is planning to fail?
Thank you. I know that quote, and I'm going to be racking my brain to think about the answer before the end, but I promise you I won't look it up on the internet.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And
Well,
structure. What kind of definitions did you come up with?
I came up with two verb definitions. They're a lot more in the way of noun definitions,
Mm,
but I got to construct or arrange according to a plan or to give a pattern or organization to something.
okay. And I have some just very, very close to that.
Okay.
The first one is to plan, organize, or arrange the parts of something. The second one is close to what you just said, to arrange or organize something. And then the third one I have is to form into or according to a structure.
Hmm.
And my last one was to arrange something in an organized way.
Okay.
Okay. And that's hence the trivia question about planning, because plan was in both of our one of our definitions.
Yes, it
Yes. So
was. Thank
yes.
you.
So there's a structure. So that means that we need to do something. And what were your thoughts when we said when you pulled structure out of the gelato can?
I I felt neutral about it, but as I started researching it, I was very troubled, even trying to find good quotes because it is so often used as a noun that there are very fewer opportunities to see it as a verb. And then as I continued digging, I found a trail which you might have gone down also that got me very excited finally.
Oh, okay. All
How
right. And
about yourself?
I had similar kinds of sidebars, if you will,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because as you said, typically when I look up a word, a verb, it
Mm-hmm.
typically has the verb as the first form for definition. And
Oh,
and in every dictionary I looked at this time, you're right. It started off with nouns,
yep.
and I had to read all the nouns, and then I got to the verbs,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, oh, okay, this is different. But
One of the exercises I have to do when I'm, say, looking for a good quote is to say, when the word shows up in a sentence, the word structure, is it the structure or a structure, which points to the noun, or is it to structure, which of course points to the verb? And
hmm,
that's where I was finding many, many more quotes about the noun form rather than the verb form.
okay. And I think I went out on a little bit of a tangent, because as I was looking at this, I asked myself, I said, okay, I understand why there's nouns
Hmm.
and verbs here. And I, like you, I thought, okay, how does that really impact me, affect me, or
Yeah.
have has no impact on me? And so I asked the question, what in my daily life? And so I'll ask our audience right now, what in our daily lives provides us structure? And is structure good? Now, I did talk to my buddy X, who
Oh,
lives
I
who
like your
lives
buddy X.
and he told me, because he brought up structure as he wasn't complaining, but he
Mhm.
was certainly having some critical thoughts about some things that were happening at work.
Okay.
And he said, Wayne, structure is good. And I said, wow, X, it's exciting you say that. He goes, why? I said, because that's the verb that Sheila and I are going to be talking about next week.
Yay.
So I told him to give me something. And he basically said, structure is good and structure should be in our life. And we need structure. He says, now, we don't need it to the point where we break because it has to have
Mhm.
some flexibility. But he says,
Right.
we need structure. And so I said, again, what in our daily lives provides us structure? And I came up with some things that I think are just obvious, but people may not even think of them. Shall I tell you the first one that
I
I
would
came up with?
love to hear the first one.
Traffic lights.
Ah, if you pay attention to them.
If you pay attention, but it gives a structure
Yes,
such
it
that there
does.
such that there is a form of or format that has to be followed. If it's red, you stop so the other side can go,
Mhm.
and if it's yellow, okay, yeah, maybe, but if it's green, you can just get to go right on through, and it's structured that way using the verb such that there are safety is the issue.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, what else can I come up with? And I looked at and I I went to my trusty little structure plan that I have, and it's called a calendar. Wow.
I can't live without mine.
And then I looked at the time and I go, clocks give us structure because we set alarms and we set timers and
Right.
we set so and I got into this pattern of wow, there are a lot of things that are out there that structure certainly plays a part. And then I thought, well, why is structure important? And besides the obvious, I went to again do some research and I found an article that gave me some of those answers. But I will defer to you because I'm talking a lot here. So I will go to you and say, okay, Sheila, what did you come up with?
Well, I really like the way you've gone because ultimately I went down that too, looking at many different ways that people list how to structure your life in for success or or to prevent chaos. How to find structure in chaos. And what I really liked in one website that I love called FlyLady.net, she defined chaos as can't have people over syndrome. and if and if you live in chaos, you know exactly what that
I
means.
do, I
Because
do.
yesterday, I live in a condo, and the management had come into the unit for maintenance purposes and then left after a period of time. And I thought, did my dog get lonely and call them and say, "There's a maintenance problem here. You need to come in"? And I thought, and I immediately my mind went to not so much was there a flood, but um, my laundry's hanging up in the door frame. The
Uh-oh.
dining room table is my folding station right now. We pulled the patio furniture off the balcony for some maintenance issues, and that's in the dining room with the dining room table. And I thought I'm embarrassed because someone I don't know came into my home and saw how I really live.
But is
So
that how you're structured? I don't think so.
I mean, well, and so then I found a quote which I thought was very good, which is when you're imposing structure in your life, it gets worse before it gets better because you have to sometimes create a little chaos in order to sort it all out and put it into and structure it into a framework. So,
Okay.
okay, let's go back to yours.
Okay. I still have some more on my list of
Yeah.
what our
Okay.
daily lives provide a structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I was thinking as a college student and as a teacher, I thought, all right, I write an instrument that gives my students structure. And as a student, I would always look at this instrument as structure for me because it told me when, where, how, and what I
Mm.
need. And it's called a syllabus, a syllabi.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, right. So that provides
Right.
structure. And,
Yeah.
and something that I like to use when I go out and do speaking engagements, ground rules. Ground rules
Mm-hmm. Yep.
provide structure as to, all right, we're all together. Now here's how we're going to move forward so we can move forward and get to that end point that everyone's trying to get to, whether that's lunch or dinner. Have Wayne stop talking. and and I was thinking, okay, what else gives us structure? There are
Mm-hmm.
laws that we have to follow. There are policies, governing bodies. And then I said, okay, I kind of went into the esoterical, just decorum by
Mm-hmm.
itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what is decorum? I thought, okay, so we're talking golden rule. We're talking about um, I remember last time we talked about the Girl Scouts who were selling cookies,
Hmm.
and
Be
one
kind. I remember that.
be kind. Yes. So I think that's decorum, I think, right? N-
Yeah.
Now, anytime we go to many places, we jump into a line
Or Q or a
or
Q.
queue. I think you're looking at my sheet because it says lines or
Oh.
queues because I was saying, oh,
Ah.
if we're in the UK, but you already said it, so good. Um, and in a line, it's first come, first serve. Well, I was in a line yesterday at the airport,
Ah.
and then talking about decorum,
Mm.
there are some things that break the rules for first come, first serve. Just because I'm the first in this line doesn't mean I get to go first because there are categories or special people who get to go before
That's
me,
true. That's
right?
right. Yep.
Yes. Okay. And and then there are those special people who aren't special, but they think they are, and they think they they think they have inherent rights and privileges. But we won't talk about that.
No, 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 no.
Pilots also have structure in their activities because pilots use a checklist for takeoff and landing.
That's right.
As not to
Significantly.
Right, it's significant as so not to miss any steps. And it doesn't mean that they have bad memories. It's just to make sure that everything is done in the correct order, because if not, something could be missed and that could create havoc. So,
And you especially know that being a helicopter pilot.
well, I learned how to, yes, indeed. That was always fun. Now, and then I laughed. It was a big barrel laugh too. Just, I mean, it was deep and loud
Hmm.
because you and I have structure.
Yes.
What's the name of our podcast? 27
27 minutes.
minutes.
Do we adhere to our structure every time?
I think we're special.
Maybe not.
We try. We do very
We
well, but
do.
I don't think we've gone over 28 minutes though. But
Good.
I don't remember. I'm not sure, but I think but we try to keep it to 27 minutes. So I was thinking, ooh, suppose we got into this studio where it was 27 minutes with Sheila and Wayne, and at 27 minutes
It
we
cuts
turned the mic
off.
off, whether we were finished or not. So, and,
Oh,
and and that made me realize that I think you and I have structured ourselves so that we can give at least the important things early and
yes.
first, so that we don't forget them
Yes.
as we get near the end. so,
Right.
so that's where I went with my personal side. My professional side, not the professional side, but going into the articles, I'll start next. But I will wait for you because I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, one of the things I was looking up that you have referenced also is that sometimes you have to start at the end and work your way back to the beginning.
Aha.
So, for instance, when you're doing the syllabus, you want to have the students understand certain concepts and be
Yes.
able to practice or exercise those. And so you outline those, and then you work backwards on how to present those so that the students can learn them.
Aha.
And that kind of goes back to my saying sometimes the chaos gets worse before it gets better.
Better. Yeah.
But I found some. I don't normally look up synonyms for our verb, but in this case, when I was first trying to find to structure and it kept going, slipping over to the noun side, some of the, even though it would say structure to structure in the title, some of the other subtitle words were to plan, to build, to
Mm.
design, and to create.
Hmm.
And I'd been approaching it more as to impose. And so I really liked these synonyms as a way of expanding this verb. And so while I started out challenged, I kind of got into several different organizations that talk about how to structure your life.
Okay.
And I looked for what they have in common. And ironically, what many of them have in common sounds routine and mundane because it's essentially creating routines. But the idea is then to free you up from the minutia in order to thrive in the spaces that you have made available for yourself, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
So I really
Perfect
liked
sense.
that. Really liked that.
Excellent. All right. And what did you come up with?
Well, put your shoes on. When you get up, get dressed and put your shoes on. And
Ah.
that way you're ready to start your day. And if you're just walking around in your slippers, it gets harder and harder to get ready for the day. I find for myself. So it's the simple little things like make your bed. This is something that my husband is really good at because he went to military high school. But once your bed is made, the whole room looks like it's ready for the day. And then you
Oh,
don't have to go back and retrace your strips and do things like that. So
okay. Now, can
he
he bounce a quarter off of his sheets when he makes it because he went to military school?
he did, and I'm gonna get out a quarter tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna bounce it on the, and I'm gonna just say, Wayne said,
Ooh.
you're not really good at doing this unless you can bounce the quarter. So then you and he can have a fun conversation after
Okay.
that.
From a long distance, though, yes.
Dissing me in front of my wife, are you now, Wayne? So let's get back to some of your professional uses of the word to structure.
Okay. I found an article. It says 7 organizational structure types
Ooh, okay.
by Christine Organ. And I go, okay, I'm not so interested in the types, but let me
Mhm.
read the article. And as I read the article, I was excited because it did come up with, and it does have in it, the benefits of creating an organizational structure.
Nice.
And I thought, okay, that's more what I'm looking for. And she says there are many benefits to creating an organizational structure that aligns with the company's operations, goals, and objectives.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, that's very, very cool because if everything's in line and is all the same thing, then it should be easier to attain that success, whatever that success is. And so clearly disseminating this information to employees, she says, is extremely important because of, again, the company's operations, their goals, and their objectives. She says one of the first benefits of creating an organizational structure is it provides accountability. And I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of neat because I like to think about that. Who answers to this, who answers to this, and who answers to this, and you can look at that structure and say, okay, this is the person that has to answer that one. This person answers this one. I thought that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
She says it clarifies expectations. And I thought, ooh, all right, I do
Mhm.
like that because expectations sometimes get in the way.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. It documents criteria for promotion. Ooh. Uh, I thought, okay. That I'm sure most employees would be excited about that one. She says it designates decision-making authority. So who can make the decisions and who can't? Be, again, if you are coming to that traffic light on the personal side and it's blinking red on all ways, there's still that outside rule that says if everybody comes to the intersection at the same or nearing at the same
Mhm.
time, the person on the right gets to go first.
Mhm.
And I've seen many times where the person on the left did and the person on the right was beeping the horn.
Mhm.
I have the right of way, and
I
that goes back to being kind and decorum.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
were going to say something.
As a pedestrian, never fight for your right of way over a car. Just saying.
There's about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds that says you might lose, right?
Right, right, right.
But yes, okay. She says benefits creating organizational structure. It creates efficiency because again, there's no duplication of effort. You're not doing the same thing I'm doing, so it's kind of like that. Coming down the conveyor belt. All right, somebody has to put it on, somebody has to take it off, somebody has to QC it, somebody has to put it back, somebody has to package it. All right, we all can't just do whatever we want. So that's all right. And then she says there's some essential elements of clear organizational structure, but I'll get to that
Okay.
after you talk to us a little bit more about what you found for structure.
Well, going back to how to create structure, how to structure your life in a way to create success, success being whatever you define that to be. Two of the hints that I thought were unusual and made me think about it because they weren't predictable were um, overestimate how long a task will take. And my traditional habit of procrastinating
Oh
means,
no, I can't believe that.
I tell you, it's my Achilles heel. And it means that, and now I'll tell you something about that on the side there. But it means that for instance, I have had a printer on my office floor in the box for probably 2 months, And the old printer finally ran out of ink. And so I had no printer here. So I thought, well, it's going to take me 15 minutes to hook this new printer up, even though I have not done that for 2 months. It took probably 3 hours because it turns out it's not actually connected to the computer. It's Bluetooth, and they had to
Oh,
kind of find each other. And
yes.
I was impatient for that process to go faster. So I underestimated how long that task would take. And it created a whole range of frustration as well as a cascade of things that didn't get done because I didn't allot enough time for this. So I like the idea of overestimating because it also lends itself to leaving some margin in your routine. So many times when I look at my to-do list or my calendar, my schedule, I go, what? That is a lot of work, you know. But if you overestimate, you leave yourself some margin to relax between tasks.
Hmm.
But also, it's important when I schedule all of these things to make sure I put fun time in there too. So there's
Oh,
two different concepts: overestimate, margin, three concepts, and make sure that when I plan my schedule, I put in things that are intentionally fun, whatever, however I define that. Maybe a little bike ride, maybe listen to
excellent.
a podcast like 27 Minutes with
This,
Sheila and Wayne,
oh,
perhaps.
such a good podcast.
I know.
I
So
like
that's, pardon?
I like it.
Okay, good, good.
Podcast. Yes.
And then, okay, then I'm going to say one more concept before we get back to yours, and that is um, plan that some balls will drop, and that's okay. So
Okay.
you're not going to do it all perfectly, and that's okay.
And you know what? You just talked about a great scenario. I used to be a project manager, and I
Hmm.
taught project management as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And you're talking about that critical path because as your activities elongate because you didn't plan
Hmm.
accordingly or
Hmm.
put in some flex time such that, ooh, all right, we know this could, because we are dependent on someone else bringing something like
Right. Right.
materials coming from Florida. And all of a sudden there's a hurricane, so they're diverted or washed out, and you have to reorder.
Hmm.
If you don't ex- anticipate that happening,
Hmm.
and you are on this rigid
Right.
program network, your critical path is going to be extended, which is going to be over budget, over cost, and you're going to have to charge your customer
Mm.
more money because you didn't plan for that.
Not to mention the stress you've put on yourself there.
Not to mention the stress. You're right.
That's why I like the concepts of to structure as create, build, plan, and design as opposed to impose.
Yes. Okay, so the traffic lights, do they impose?
Well, they can.
I think they have a sense of humor too, because on Sundays when I'm late for church, I catch everyone. I
Oh.
think they say, "Oh, here comes Wayne. It's turned red." Oh, sorry, Wayne, we're red.
When I used to drive our son to school, we had the light we loved to hate. Took forever.
Okay. Well, looking at looking at Miss Organ's
Yes.
well, that's wow, that's kind of strange. I'll say it differently. How about that? Looking at um looking at Christine's list here
Hmm.
of some of those essential elements of clear organizational structure. One is chain of command. And if you look in the organizational chart, you can clearly see chain of command. Who's on the top and who's at the bottom, and everybody in between. You can look at roles and responsibilities. You can see scope of control, which goes back to more of that expectations, because expectations and who is efficiencies, who's going to do what, when, why, and where. I can't have somebody who's not a fiduciary in the organization. I can't have them making obligations for the company. It just won't work very well, I don't think.
No. Mm-mm.
No. She says decision making authority is clearly seen, and also departments or teams within the organization are clearly visible, and everyone knows what they're doing. And the first thought that jumped in my mind was Steve Jobs when they did the Apple or the Mac.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody at Apple knew what was happening with the Mac, and they go, "Ooh, ooh, ooh! There's some skunk works going on in there, and they're going to come up with this fantastic box that's going to do all these great things." And the Mac was invented. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. So when I was reading her article, Christine's article, those are some things I thought of.
Hmm.
Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty
And
cool.
what do you have for us? I'm looking at the clock. It says 25 minutes. What do you
I
say?
know. You know what?
Yeah.
I've got just one quote I want to put in here, and then I'd love to hear your closing remarks as well as your trivia question.
Aha.
This is S.T. Joshi, an Indian critic who said, I am sort of a tea addict. I structure my day by cups of tea.
Oh,
Yeah.
structures his day by cups of tea.
Hmm. I maybe structure mine by my dog's schedule.
it,
He would prefer I structure my day entirely surrounding the kitchen.
I get that because there's treats in there and there's food in there.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes,
Good
yes.
things come from there.
I like to go when I go to restaurants sometimes. I and I do this every now and then because I like the attitude, but I order dessert first and I call it an appetizer
Ooh.
because if you eat that, what do you eat before you have dinner? An appetizer, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I can have an appetizer,
Yes, you can.
dinner, and then dessert. And sometimes that flusters the waiter or waitress because they're like, "No, really, you want that first?" Go, yeah.
Hello.
Yes. So obviously our structures are different, but that's okay.
That's
And,
okay.
and so here we go. The question of the day was, who coined the phrase "failing to plan is planning to fail"? And the answer is it is widely attributed to Alan Larkin, who
Hmm.
wrote several self-help books from the 70s and onward.
Well, I would not have guessed that. But, it's probably one of those sayings that you hear and you attribute it to Alan the first time. And the next time you say it, you say, someone said. And then the third time you say it, you say, I came up with this.
I like that.
Well, I like doing this with you. I actually have enjoyed this topic so much that I plan after our podcast here to spend a little more time on my calendar and structure my day with or
Ooh,
without the dog's input.
okay.
And we want to thank everybody for listening to this and hope that you have gained something from it as well.
We absolutely do. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Wayne.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.